I started out as an engineer in computer science. I worked very hard in the early days of medical imaging and was responsible for the team that developed the first MRI scanner and developed the software for the first digital subtractive angiography and digital x-ray machines. And so I had been, in effect, pushing pixels for much of my career. And then my last startup actually was a 360-degree imaging company that I did for fun. And Google eventually bought it and became Google Street View, if you've ever used Google Street View. Okay, so I became a venture capitalist about 12 years ago, and I have focused on the big data aspect of digital healthcare and making better diagnoses, personalized diagnostics, because every person is different, effectively.
Okay.
I joined Decheng about 4 months ago, and the reason I joined them is because they are purely healthcare, and they are half investing in China and half investing in the United States. And I believe that the Chinese market is one of the most fertile markets there is right now in healthcare. That in the last 15 or 20 years, 1 billion people have entered the modern healthcare system in China. And so as a consequence, I think that's a particularly good area to be investing.
Okay.
I focus on diagnostics, on basically helping people make personalized decisions about what therapy is going to work for them. The other aspect I do focus on is how do I help a doctor make a better decision. I'm not very interested in wellness, in counting people's steps, and things like that. I'm much more interested in helping a doctor solve a serious problem. He has a cancer patient in front of him and he wants to know what is the therapy that will work for that patient. Okay? He doesn't want to just throw chemotherapy, which is sort of like a poison, at the patient. He wants to understand what immunotherapy is customized for that patient.
Right.
Or understand what is specific, what is wrong with this person's system that he can fix to make them healthy again.
Right.
Okay, so my focus is on solving doctors' problems.
Solving doctor's problem.
Yeah.
That's a good thing.
I'm on the board and the first investor in a company called Natera, which is a non-invasive prenatal testing company. They've gone public, and now they are growing very quickly, and they are moving into liquid biopsy and cancer diagnostics as well. But what they do is they tell a mother at 9 weeks of pregnancy whether the baby she has conceived is actually healthy or not. Okay, so they can do a genetic sequence of that baby by looking at the mother's blood with a simple blood draw, because there's free-floating DNA from the fetus in the mother's blood, and they can then determine whether there's trisomies or monosomies or microdeletions or missing genes, or single gene mutations of one sort or another. As women are now having babies at a later age than they used to, now in their late 30s, these things are more common problems. So as a consequence, Natera is in a very good position. The market's sort of coming to them in a lot of ways. And it's much easier to do that test than to do amniocentesis or CVS. Okay, much easier, just take a simple blood draw and you can tell the baby. Now, there are unexpected side effects of this, for example. My son had a baby, my son and daughter-in-law had a baby 2 years ago, and they had the Natera test. And as the baby was born, as he was literally emerging from his mother, he had a gigabyte of information in his electronic medical record already. He, in effect, had been sequenced already. And so as a consequence, doctors are now in a world where they have too much data, as opposed to not enough data. And that's what I focus on, is trying to help them find out what's important in that too much data that they have to pay attention to. So Natera is one of my companies that's been very successful. And I would not be surprised if 5 or 10 years from now, every baby who's conceived has this test. Okay, because mothers want to know. And doctors want to know, as the baby is being born, is it predisposed to a disease? Is it more likely to develop something than something else? Is it more likely to have a respiratory problem or something? The doctors want to know that sort of information early on. So that's one of the companies. Another company that I invested in diagnoses when you have an antibiotic-resistant bacterial pathogen, like MRSA, for example. Okay, and they can tell by just doing a simple nasal swab whether you're colonized with not only a pathogen, but a pathogen that's antibiotic resistant. So they can tell the doctor what drug to use, to kill it. Yes, I think that's very, very important, for example. And then a third company I've invested in is a company called Assurex, they test your genome to find out what drugs you will respond to, what antidepressants, anti-anxiety medications, or analgesics you will respond to and which ones you will not. I remember talking to psychiatrists who said that when they had a patient who was depressed, they would sometimes prescribe an antidepressant, but it would only work like 20 or 30% of the time. And they'd have to try another one in 3 weeks or 6 weeks or something like that. It was doing trial and error effectively. This company with a genetic test can tell now at 90% likelihood that drug is going to work, this drug is not.
Yeah.
And so I think this is another very interesting area, is drug susceptibility, that they can read through the genome. Do you have the receptors for the drug?
The good one.
Well, I will tell you, I take my first presentation from the company, and then pretty much right after that presentation, I call a doctor who's a specialist in that field, and I ask them very specifically, is this a problem you have? Is this a burning problem? Or is this just kind of cool? Okay, and I tend to avoid companies that are kind of cool. I focus on, are they solving a problem that a doctor has? Okay, to me that's the most important thing. Okay, so I'm very much driven by what doctors need. I think that's part of it. If you focus on a problem that a doctor has, doctors will embrace it and use it. Okay, and furthermore, doctors will tell the insurers, you should pay for this, I need this, otherwise I'm going to spend $10,000 treating him for something that doesn't going to work, or something like that. So it's one of the keys to getting paid as well, is solve a problem a doctor really has, as opposed to something kind of cute. Okay, so I am fairly careful about that sort of thing. I can tell you, 5 years ago I was seeing a lot of companies that were proposing artificial intelligence for medicine, to try to figure out how to replace a radiologist with a computer. I wasn't interested in that. Okay, because I think that what happens is if you displace a doctor, those doctors, radiologists, will fight you. They don't want to lose their jobs. Okay, so my focus right now is on companies that help doctors make better decisions. Even artificial intelligence, even radiology. If you can show in the image what is important so the doctor doesn't miss it, that's valuable. Okay, so I try to help doctors. That's my key focus. Well, the end result was I'd had 5 successful startups, so as a consequence, I could easily have just gone off to the beach and retired. I liked healthcare, in particular smart diagnostics, because I was helping people too. It made me feel good to a certain extent. It was fun, and it was helping make the world a better place. So I confess, a lot of my motivation is emotional. I just like to help people, help doctors make better decisions. And I have a long history in this field, so as a consequence, I kind of understand how to do that. Okay, but I mean, I see companies that are trying to make smarter skateboards, or taxi cabs that drive themselves, or something like that. And I think they're kind of interesting, but to me, helping people get better, have longer lives, be healthier, is more important than some of the tech investments. When I first was getting into venture capital, I was actually a founder of a couple of different angel groups that were making angel investments. And at that time, there weren't many angel groups. There were just a few in this valley. There are now maybe more than a dozen angel groups in this valley. And so I've noticed that venture capital, a lot of the early stage investments in just ideas, are coming from angel groups. Okay, and then venture capitalists, when they start showing some economic traction or start showing proof that it works in a small trial or something like that, that's when VCs get involved. So I would say the investment community has gotten much more complex, with angels involved, also corporate and venture capitalist firms now and things like that. It's gotten much more complex, whereas way back 30, 40 years ago, venture capitalists were the only people investing in startups. Now it's a much more complex world. I think AI will be a very big deal in medicine. Because I think right now, all of a sudden, doctors are being confronted with a patient with a medical record that may have gigabytes of information in it, and they have 20 minutes to see the patient. And they can't possibly consume all of that data and understand the patient at the same time. So I believe we're going to see more and more artificial intelligence in medicine that just simply filters through the data and says, these 3 things are important. He's taking this drug. He used to have this condition. He was cured of this particular cancer. Those kinds of things are important to notice. But if you are confronted with a gigabyte of information in an electronic medical record, the doctor may not see that.
Right.
Okay, so I think AI is going to be one of the big things in the next 30 years in medicine. Okay, and I also think we are beginning to decode the genome. We're beginning to understand the epigenome, the genome, the nucleome, all of the big data aspects that are in our body. And as we start really understanding the actual molecular mechanism of disease, I think we'll be able to both catch things earlier and block them before they become serious.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
And I was reading a paper just the other day. I'm not sure you know this, but in a single cell in your body, which is approximately 6 to 10 millionths of a meter in diameter, okay? So it's a very small cell. The genome in that one cell, if it was stretched out, is 6.5 feet long. It's almost 2 meters long. And yet it's all crammed down into this little tiny cell that's 6 to 10 millionths of a meter in diameter. So there's an enormous amount of information in every single cell.
Right.
And then as you get older and your telomeres shorten and you experience cosmic rays and things like that, I suspect my genome in my hand and my genome in my liver are slightly different now. Okay? So the amount, we are all big piles of information.
Right.
That's what we are.
Right.
Okay? And so understanding all of that information and how it changes the way we are going to be treated and how we're going to be doing targeted treatment that solves just that problem and nothing else. I think that's what's happening in the next 30 years.
Okay.
Now, one of the big dangers of this is if every person in the United States starts living to be 120 years old, what are we going to do when 3/4 of the population is on Social Security at this point? So I do believe we have some other challenges right now. As we start lengthening life, how are we going to not overwhelm the planet with people and completely destroy our own retirement systems and things like that by having everybody retired? So that's one of the challenges. There are a lot of challenges associated with this sort of thing. But I think that we're just simply going to get smarter. Right now, I don't think we understand more than about 2 or 3% maybe of the genome at the most. And we don't even, frankly, the nucleome, how the genome is folded is extremely important, and yet it's been only just recognized in the last 5 years or so. And the epigenome, how your life as it goes on, how some things are turned up and turned down in your genome, that's also changing from generation to generation and from person to person, from year to year. So it doesn't all stand still. That's one of the problems with the genome, is it doesn't stand still. It's continually changing slightly in the environment you're in. So we are all big piles of information, and it's information that doesn't even stand still. And that's what's interesting to me. Okay. Well, China has changed dramatically for me in the 40 years since I was first there. Okay. I mean, in I guess it was 37 years, but whatever. Okay. When I was there, there were maybe 5 buildings in Beijing that were more than 10 stories tall. And I just was in Shanghai a couple of weeks ago, and there must be 10,000 buildings that are more than 10 stories tall now. So the city has, the place has urbanized dramatically, okay? And the education level is much higher at this point. So I believe that China is a huge market, an absolutely huge market. And that, by the way, is not to mention all the health problems that China has with pollution and things of that sort, which makes it even more of an interesting market for me to invest in. So I think that venture capital is going to become bigger and bigger and bigger in China for sure. And the only thing I worry about is I don't know the extent to which the government is sort of controlling the marketplace, controlling the markets, and maybe things are inflated valuation-wise right now or something.
Now kind of getting their hand off slowly.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, we all have had bubbles. I mean, in 2000 we had a bubble, okay, in the United States, and that bubble burst. And a lot of companies that were very valuable suddenly were not very valuable. And even now we're seeing unicorns that used to be hugely valuable that have gone down in value. And, you know, I also wonder whether we are seeing, because we catch cancer nowadays late. We catch it when it's heterogeneous, when it's like stage 3 or stage 4 or stage 5. I think one of the most important things we could be doing in the next 10 years or so is starting to find diagnostics that catch cancer in stage 1.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
When it's only a single mutation, it has not become heterogeneic with
Right.
multiple mutations. It's much easier to treat when that happens.
Right.
And so
Right.
I think that's one of the keys.
Right.
I have an investment, for example, in a company right now that is saliva-based. They can detect breast cancer and lung cancer very early stage, before it's even visible in an X-ray or a mammogram. And I think that's where we're going to be going someday, is to very, very early diagnostics with very simple sample collection. And then a treatment that's very, very targeted, specific, and kills those 10 cells that are cancerous
Okay.
before they're even big enough to appear in an
Right.
X-ray.
Right. Right.
So
Okay.
if we look back on medicine, in the last 25 or 30 years, they would find cancers based on lumps.
Okay.
Okay, they would manually manipulate something or another,
Right.
find a lump inside it, and then they would treat them patients with chemotherapy, which is effectively a poison.
Okay.
It's just a poison that kills the cancer slightly more than it kills you. Okay, I think we're moving away from that. We're moving now to targeted therapies that are specific to the mutations associated with the cancer, and that's where we're going in the
Right.
next 20 years.
Right. Getting better.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, we're getting better. Absolutely getting better.
Right.
What I always look at when I first see the team is, as I said, I immediately call a doctor and find out if it's a burning problem they're solving.
Right,
Okay,
right.
but I also look at the team. I don't like to see a team that's like 3 PhDs in biochemistry.
Okay.
Okay, I like to see a team that has like an MD involved, a scientist who's very smart in that field, and an MBA who understands business and how to manage money.
Right.
I look for some diversity in the team. Okay, so that they complement each other and they make each other smarter in some ways, as opposed to having 3 guys who all know exactly the same thing and nothing more.
Right.
Okay, so I do look at that team very hard.
Okay.
And I look at the clinical advisors. Who are the people who are advising them? And if there is a famous doctor at Stanford or UCSF who is very interested in this, interested enough to have his name listed in their deck, in their pitch deck, things like that, that tells me something. That
Right.
tells me they're solving a problem this guy's got. He's letting his name be used.
Okay.
Okay, so I tend to pay attention to that too.
Okay.
Medicine changes slowly because people will work for 30 years after they get out of medical school. And during that 30 years, they won't necessarily want to change very much because they'll get sued if something goes bad,
Right.
or something like that.
Right.
So medicine is cautious.
Right.
It doesn't change very quickly.
Right.
And that's another reason for focusing on burning problems they've got.
Right.
Okay? Because they'll change on that for sure if they have
Right.
no solution
Right.
to a problem and suddenly you give them a solution.
Right.
But I think medicine is going through a revolution.
Right.
We'll look back on this time and say this was a revolutionary time in medicine.